All right, let's feast. We're still live. We're still on the road. Appreciate everyone for coming out. The scene has changed. The wife and daughter, they're back in Houston, and I am here at my mom's house. You can see a lot of flags and stuff. She was a history teacher, so the background's a little bit interesting, but the road work does not stop. Appreciate everyone for coming through. Be sure to subscribe, like, right along. We're going to get into the draft class. We're going to give an update on Texans rookies, and this is on the aftermath of a draft that I think we'll look back on as I think the unquestioned best draft in the history of the Houston Texans. If you look at the 2023 draft. But I also think if things go where many people are hoping they'll go, then maybe we're talking about one of the best drafts in the history of the NFL. And I don't think that's hyperbole. I don't think that's too far fetched. I think that'll be uh, really, really interesting to see how that whole thing plays out. And this year was a lot different. This year was much different. The approach was different. The equity was different. You didn't have a first round pick on draft day after having two in the top 12 and then two in the top three after the trade. And you had expectations. It was almost like filling holes on a good football team instead of trying to build a football team and go through the process that Nick Caserio had created. So I think when it's all said and done, we're going to look back at that draft class last year, and it's going to be historic locally, and that's where we lean. We like to localize it, but I think nationally, it might be one of those drafts that people point to as one of the best drafts in the history of the NFL as well. If C.J. Stroud and Will Anderson are able to do um, what they're able to do, is it too early to build a C.J. Stroud statue? I would say yes. Um, What's up, locker rumors? Okay, I like that. I don't know if that's going to be something that sticks, but I like that. We're also going to hear from some coordinators today, but I'm going to ask you, how historic will the 2023 draft end up being? Like, is there any chance that it's not the best in Texans franchise history? I'd say the answer to that would be no, and I think that it could definitely be historic from an NFL perspective, from a non-local perspective. Let's go through the rookies though, and just look at the little bit of an update on each of the rookies and where they are now compared to where we figured they would be 4 months ago. And I think this is a cool exercise to do. Let's start with the first pick that they made, which was round two, pick 42, Kamari Lassiter. And we all remember the dialogue when Lassiter was selected. Building up to it, I think Kool-Aid McKinstry was the people's choice. I know he was my choice. There was some Cooper DeJean. There were some people who wanted defensive tackles. Um, but we anticipated that corner was in the mix. We just didn't know that Kamari Lassiter would be that guy. And they end up taking Kamari Lassiter. The biggest controversy about Kamari Lassiter when he was selected was the speed. Is he going to be fast enough to play on the outside? I really didn't think it mattered from that point of view, because to me, if you get a guy that's a really good slot guy and he can be your slot corner for 4 years and be good, I think it's a huge asset in today's NFL. It's like having three good wide receivers, right? You use elite equity, assets, finances, draft picks on getting three receivers. Well, you're going to need three corners on the field at least. So even if you were a slot guy, I don't think it would have mattered, and I don't think that it would have made the pick a terrible one. But here's what has happened with Kamari Lassiter. Since day one of camp, he's been the starter. And since day one of camp, he's held his own. I mean, he's looked good. He's going against really, really good receivers. This isn't like when a D lineman is feasting on a bad offensive line, or a bad offensive line is looking good against a bad D lineman, which we've experienced here. But this guy's holding his own against one of the best receiving cores, if not the best receiving core in the NFL, and he's doing so as CB2 with no questions asked. Now, I don't know if there's anyone, I don't know if Akuda, Henderson, any of these guys, Desmond King would be capable of pushing him. So I think there is that. But he's holding his own, and he's doing a really, really good job. Kamari Lassiter. So he's kind of surpassed the expectations. I tweeted this out earlier. He's 40-1 to be defensive rookie of the year. And there's a lot of prop bets that don't make sense from a Texans point of view. CJ Stroud MVP is somewhat appealing. Winning the division is even money. That's not appealing. There's the Derek Stingley 150-1 to be defensive player of the year. And then Daniil Hunter and Will Anderson, they have interesting outlooks as well. Kamari Lassiter at 40-1 in a draft that was offensive heavy, where there's really not a clear-cut favorite to be the defensive rookie of the year. This seems like a really good value with Kamari Lassiter. And I actually made the bet. I used BetUS. If you go to my Twitter at Landry Locker, I put out the link. I think it's something worth sprinkling. Throw $10 out there, $400 if he gets it. He's not going to he's not going to be under the radar. They got 6 primetime games, so every single platform is going to be talking about him. He's going to be challenged because he has Derek Stingley opposite him for most games, hopefully. So he's going to have opportunity to make plays, and he's looked really, really good. So 40-1, the prop bets I think are really, really nice. I think it's going to be really, really nice. The dude played for Nick Saban. I think you're thinking Kirby Smart, Tony. Tony said the dude played for Nick Saban. I think you're talking about Kirby Smart. But you can be disciplined and not ready to play, and there's going to be inevitable struggles. So we'll see. I'll get to the Cade Stover pick in a sec, and we'll keep this going, though. Blake Fisher, next update. This is a pick that I love. If you were watching on the stream with myself and Stutz, I wasn't thrilled. I was actually shocked that they took him. I was actually shocked that they took a tackle. I didn't think that was going to happen. I thought they were in love with their tackles. I followed the money that they invested in Laramie Tunsil and Titus Howard. I didn't know what they thought about swing tackle. They'd also let George Fant go, who was a very important part of things last year. And I guess Charlie Heck, they don't like him as much as they did in the past, and he continues to get hurt. I love this pick. I think this is going to be a pick 2 years from now that we look at as brilliant, quite honestly, because he's going to be in charge of protecting either the right or left side for CJ Stroud during the prime of his career. Is he going to be Tunsil's replacement? Is he going to be Titus Howard's replacement? I don't know, but he's going to play. And this is another guy like Lassiter who was immediately out there with the first team. Laramie Tunsil, he's just recently returned to practice. Fisher's out there at left tackle. Titus Howard, he misses a practice. Fisher's out there at right tackle. So there was questions about whether or not Blake Fisher is going to be ready to be your swing tackle. I think so. They put him out there, and quite frankly, he's looked pretty good. And oh, by the way, like Lassiter, it's kind of easy to tell how he's doing because he's going against elite. Like if there's one position group that you could maybe push back on and say, okay, this position group might be better than the wide receivers, I think the only one that you can even bring to the table, and we're not counting quarterback because you only have one, but it would be defensive end. With Daniil Hunter and with Will Anderson. And he's held up quite nicely. So 2 picks that you can look at as kind of long-term-ish, and immediately in practice, they seem to be ahead of what we anticipated they would be. Not necessarily the case with the 3rd pick. As we do the rookie evaluation, we're a little less than a month away from the season. Caleb Bolling, he's looked good. The guy can make plays. I think the guy is going to be a monster. I think he's only going to get bigger and stronger. The offseason next year, this time at camp, we're going to be talking about a guy that probably should be a starting safety, and we're probably not even going to recognize him because he's gonna look massive. He doesn't look small, but he probably needs to put on some weight, and I think he said that. But Kalen Bullock, safety, you thought you needed a safety. Jalen Petrie last year, disappointment. Jimmy Ward can't stay healthy, and that's been the case for a long time of his career. Kalen Bullock's been a nice pick. How much of an impact does he make this year? Don't know. Is he even out there? In the case, is he one play away from being out there? I don't know, but he's been fine too. Cade Stover, solid, very physical, very balanced skill set compared to the tight ends that we have. Schultz is a really good receiver, not an awesome blocker. Brevin Jordan, he kind of adds different elements, not a great blocker. If he does his thing, then Cade Stover can end up being your starting tight end. So I think of these four guys, and I don't think this is a stretch. I think these guys, you could be looking at four starters in the next couple of years that you drafted when you didn't even have a first round pick, which is impressive. Does that make it the best draft? But it's impressive. Jamal Hill, really haven't seen a ton from him. He's been out there at certain times, not really making a ton of plays. So Jamal Hill, we'll see. Jawar Jordan, some practices have been better than others. Do I think Jawar Jordan is going to be a guy that's going to be toting the rock this year? I would bet against it. Don't know what happens with him. And then you have Solomon Byrd and Marcus Harris, who were both 7th round picks. Really, just kind of they're there. And who knows? Maybe they can be contributors in the long term. And this is another thing. I've been hammering this home. I think you have to consider and connect Stefon Diggs to this draft class because you traded back 19 spots basically to get Stefon Diggs. So when we're evaluating this draft class, obviously Stefon Diggs is a long-time, accomplished, veteran NFL receiver, but you acquired him with your draft equity. You got that 2nd round pick and you immediately flipped it for Stefon Diggs. So when you're evaluating this draft class, I do think that needs to be taken into account because I thought that was a very wise way in using the equity. This isn't like Bill O'Brien, 2 firsts and a 2nd for Laramie Tunsil. This isn't Bill O'Brien trading, 3rd and 4th round picks for Darian Conley and Duke Johnson. This was a good trade, and I think you can kind of connect it to the draft class when you're evaluating the success or lack thereof of the draft club. Be sure to subscribe, like, right along. Is the Locker Room #1 source for Texans digital content. I'm definitely not streaming from my home. I'm streaming from the I'm on the road, so it doesn't really stop. But thanks, mouth. Whatever the hell you are. Yeah, it's not the normal quality. It's not the normal setup. I'm definitely on the road. But yeah, thanks for the knowledge. Thanks for your feedback. Thanks for contributing. Is this Money Mills last year? I think Davis Mills could end up being the backup quarterback for sure for the Texans long term. Let's hear from Matt Burke. We don't hear a lot about Matt Burke. Quite frankly, some people wonder what does Matt Burke exactly do with D'Amico calling the defense sometimes and then sometimes not calling the defense. Let's hear what Matt Burke had to say with the media after practice today.
We talk about bringing some new guys into the system and sort of developing that attack mentality and the techniques we ask those guys to play. Obviously, the more work and the more reps they get at it, and we're kind of getting to that point of the year where it's really starting to come to fruition. So it's fun to see those guys, and it's I'd say this: the D line more than any position spends time by themselves, right? Because they're more an individual, they're more sort of isolated from the back end guys. So like they spend so much time together. Some of that stuff in terms of like the games and the working together is really starting to gel as well. So yeah, it's been fun to see. Sure.
Jalen said that coming into the season that he wanted to be more patient and he also wanted to play with controlled aggression. But more aggressive? Have you seen him be able to have that balance?
Absolutely. I think I said this to somebody some few weeks ago. I can't keep track anymore. I actually think him moving around has helped slow his mind down because he's really got to focus on where he's playing in which situation and which role. And so it's kind of just like honed his focus a little bit. But like, I think if you guys remember the second play of the game on that trap that we had, he's blitzing on that, and Pittsburgh double cadence trying to get him to show. So I mean, in terms of like the control, like last year he gets so eager to blitz, he would be like creeping up there, and then they'd see it and check out of stuff, and he just stood there like this and held it, and then on the snap, like he knifed it in there and kind of cleaned it up. So I think like stuff like that are real examples of him just like slowing his mind down and like controlling the game. He's one of our like emotional leaders, obviously, and he's such like a hype man. Like I think he has to pull himself in sometimes, but I think it's been showing a lot out here. It's allowing him to make all the plays you guys are seeing him make.
A lot of conversation about Stefon Diggs' attitude and energy from a skill set standpoint.
I'm sorry, I can't hear you.
Stefon Diggs, there's been a lot of talk about his energy, his attitude from a skill set standpoint. How has he stacked up to previous years of watching him on tape?
Yeah, same. He's always a hard cover. I've gone against him a few times in my past. Just like he's such the precision route running, and then like the understanding of leverage and stuff in terms of getting open. And he's got wicked hands, like the ball's in his vicinity. He can snatch it. So, you couple that with obviously the energy and the emotion he brings, and you guys saw it out there today, the little back and forth we had going. It's cool for us to be able to compete against him, in a controlled environment where it doesn't necessarily count on Sunday. So he's got some of the better hands I've seen, and then his just ability to get open from an understanding standpoint and route running is pretty impressive. Oh. Quick look.
Now he's kind of been able to showcase.
Sure.
Nico mentioned your play that almost counted.
Yeah.
It's not just the athleticism, but that goes in the film study.
Suits.
How is it? Is that something that he's learned in a short amount of time? It's something he came into the league with?
Yeah, I think that was part of his profile coming, out of college. When we evaluated him in the draft, it was something that he did. So it's a similar role. Like that's how they played him a little bit, at SC. So I think the sort of anticipation and the timing or stuff that he's banked some of those reps and playing like a deeper zone, deeper post, playing off the quarter, those sort of things. So obviously the length and the speed play into that, like when he does get going, but he does have a lot of work back there. He's real natural at like reading quarterbacks, like feeling routes, coming up and trying to anticipate breaks. So that kind of helps him get a jump on some things. Sure.
I was going to ask, he asked about Taylor. What about Lassiter? Just in general, what you're seeing, some of the newer guys in the secondary, that kind of talent.
Yeah, Kamari's probably come in again with the mindset in terms of like the compete, the attack, the sort of aggressive mentality that we're looking for in those guys. He's all that. I don't know if you guys have had spending time with him. He is just all business-like and wants to work. So I think it's been a cool like mix of sort of young guys and vets in that room, with guys that have been here, guys, we got some veteran safeties with Jimmy and E. Murray and those guys helping that. And then obviously Sting having a few years in the system and then you add the younger guys in. It's just kind of been a cool combination, similar honestly to the D-line talk of those guys gelling and as you get to this point at camp, you just start to see, they start to see how they fit with each other and how they play off each other and what one guy's really good at. And they start to understand, okay, I know he's going to be here in this, so I can kind of do it this way. And I think that room, again, same as the other rooms, are starting to do that. And having Kamari back and working has been part of that. Sorry. I'm sorry. Yeah. Those fans are loud out there. Yeah. Yeah, I think, I hate to say it this way, let me try to word this properly, like just the physical nature of him, like because in college he did so much of the ranging and the deep zone stuff, like we've asked him to sort of play down to be physical and tackling, and he's shown that. So like just to like answer some of those questions, I guess, of like, all right, when we ask him to do these things, or if we have to put him in this situation, we kind of felt pretty good about some of the stuff he was doing in the deeper part of the field, but to bring him down and for him to showcase, his ability to tackle and hit and strike some guys. And, as much as we talk about range in the back end, in the pass world, like for him to be able to go sideline to sideline and make some of those plays and hits on the sideline, he had some cleanup tackles. Like that was really good to see for us in game mode. Sure. Oh yeah, sure. Yeah, sure.
Jake Hansen.
She's a pit bull, huh?
at linebacker.
Yeah.
Nico talked about how he's put a lot on him.
Sure.
Training with all the linebacker
Mhm.
positions. You kind of see from his camp and kind of the growth from a couple years ago. He's an undrafted guy.
Yeah.
Maybe surprises a lot of people, makes the team. Hangs around you guys last year. Now he's fighting it.
Yeah, I think that's probably been like his versatility is probably what's kind of been able for him to carve out a little world for himself, and he does a great job. That's not easy, especially at that position, the linebacker world. Like there's different, not just the mental part, there's different skill sets we ask from each of those positions, subtle, like in terms of what coverage we're playing. So for him to be able to bounce back and forth and sort of fill in where we need him to has been awesome. I mean, I know like he was undrafted, like he was a really good college football player. I feel like people forget that he's a 2-time all Big Ten and all that stuff. So he's a good football player. I think he's just grown into that, and I'm not saying what he is or isn't, but if you're a backup or a rotational linebacker in this league, you have to be able to do that. You know what I mean? If you're going to be the next guy in, you have to be the next guy in at every spot type of thing. And so for him to have the ability to, as a coaching staff, to have comfort in him to just jump in, whatever it is, Mike, Sam, Will, hey, we need your nickel Mike, hey, back to Will, like, and it's pretty smooth and you don't worry about it. That's a huge relief for us to know you have that piece. And he's done a really great job of kind of owning that role. Sure. Cool. All right, guys. Yeah.
All right, there you go. That's Matt Burke. Interesting guy. Very, very insightful. Likes to go on adventures. We'll hear from Frank Ross in a sec. See if he's kind of gotten over the initial stress of the kickoff role. He knows he's going to be asked about that. And my guy Frank Ross never really disappoints. Practice update. I don't know if y'all got Cody Stutz's 11 observations from practice today, but it was Stefon Diggs day. And you can make a case that this has been Stefon Diggs camp, not just Stefon Diggs day. This has been Stefon Diggs camp. Like from the jump, Stefon Diggs has stuck out. And it's really, really impressive what Diggs has been able to do. Stutz was on the scene. There was a 40-yard pass that would have been a 70-yard touchdown from Stroud to Diggs. Stutz's first 3 observations were basically about Diggs. Said he was a perfectionist, said that Stroud and Diggs are lethal together. He said he hauled an absolute rocket from Stroud, 60 yards for the score. He said that Stroud had some excellent plays, end up being incomplete passes. Talked about a Joe Mixon play. He said Mixon's obviously head and shoulders above the other running backs. Kamari Lassiter with another good day, who we mentioned. The linebackers, he said, had a good day, which I think is an area of concern for many. Now, we don't know if Christian Harris is going to be out there, so maybe it's kind of time to watch, the Hansons, the To'os, we know Shire is going to be out there no matter what. Maybe watch them a little bit closely, because that might be what your linebacker crew looks like. And that could also be one of the spots where they're aggressive when it comes to potentially bringing someone in. He also said John Mechie had a couple of nice plays. Miles Bryant had 2 interceptions. You got to wonder if he's going to be on the team. They had him returning. I think he got a pretty decent shot. And he also said this about Damian Pierce, and this is the real nug from Cody Stutz. By the way, Bobby Slowick gets his own breakdown. We're on the road. The Bobby Slowick video will drop tomorrow, probably about 10 o'clock. We're going to do a little podium clip review. That guy sounds like the head coach now. And philosophically, it's a must listen with Bobby Slowick when he speaks. And I like the balance of him and D'Amico Ryans. They're aligned, but I feel like Bobby Slowick might be putting a little bit of his own identity on this thing as well. So we'll hear from Bobby tomorrow. But this was the most interesting nug from Stutz, and he saved the best for last. He always gives you the additional as well in Houston football. He said Pierce had some good decisions for gains running the ball. Dare is trustworthy. Cam Akers continues to get a little more and make defenders miss. Bobby actually talked very highly of him. Jawar Jordan took a short pass over the middle for a gain of easily 40 yards, and the defense only caught up to him as he was yards away from score. He said some days it's clear Akers and Dare. Today it was a little murkier. So he's saying that it's hard to tell who the backup running back is, but it does kind of feel like Damian Pierce is, I don't know what they're going to do about this, but they, they've got to realize, especially if Akers keeps doing what he's doing, that you can't just have a running back that's not playable. Because Cam Akers damn sure doesn't look playable. Other odds from students, he talked about Ali Gay. Ali Gay, for me, that's the kind of game that I'd like to see from Mechie. I would like to see, because we saw Ali Gay pretty much there all 4 quarters. Started out a little bit inconsistent. Then you saw him make plays, and you just basically saw him getting better as a football player throughout the game. And that's really what I would love to see from John Mechie. But those are Stutz's observations. And I thought he had some really, really good ones today. Let's hear from Frank Ross. Let's go to that third phase. We've heard from the defensive guy. We talk about offense, special teams, more important than ever. Good news is you got one of the best in the game, Frank Ross. Let's hear from our buddy Frank.
Kickoff move is going to be. You had a couple games with it. What are your thoughts about it?
Yep, challenging, exciting, on both ends of the spectrum. Challenging and exciting, not figured out. All right, I don't have their secret recipe, and hopefully whoever thinks they do would be remiss and say that. It's going to be hard, and it's going to be an evolving process. Week 2, week 3, week 4 are going to look different than week 8, 9, and 10. So we're going to continue to evolve and continue to ask players for feedback. One thing I do know is it's going to be a challenge weekly for us to cat and mouse, and there's going to be so much new exploratory things from, call it the other return units and us in coverage, that we're going to have to adjust mid-game every time we step out on the field. So we're going to see how versatile we can be in making adjustments. Good. Yeah, there's things that are not figured out from a league perspective. The rules are not 100%. So some of the things that have come up, the officials, how they're officiating it. So an example, we tried a squib kick, for lack of a better term, and it didn't make it to the landing zone. So the rule is it blows dead immediately for safety of the players and goes to the 40. In the Giants' previous game, same thing happened. It was not blown dead, and the play was played out. So because of that, it's a player safety issue. The refs, and as they, not talking bad about them, I'm just saying we all have to get caught up to speed on how this thing is really going to look. So surprising as far as blocker and runner and tackler. That's an evolving process. Definitely some things to learn, as I stated earlier, but surprising is more like, hey, how this thing is really going to be enforced, officiated, what we can and can't get away with. Those are the things we're learning.
To the point of being surprised, like, is there a part of like nerves, like week 1, or you're going to see something that maybe no one showed in the preseason? It's going to be a completely different operation, just entirely, because no one's showing anything right now.
Yeah, and I don't know if they're not showing anything in week 1. Will Burnham, our other special teams coach, he always says there's no greater feeling in the old rules than when I would say, okay, ball's in the air, hey, it's coming out, and we got to cover, or we're going to return the ball. We don't have that anymore. Now it's where eyes are fixated on half the unit and half the unit of what we're getting, so we can try and teach along the way, coming off of the field for the next play. So the anxiety is, I guess you'd say, they can try a reverse, a triple reverse, a sideline return, a middle return, and we have to diagnose quickly and move on to the next play. So I think that's what that anxious feeling might be more than, hey,
an anxious
are
guy.
we going to return or not? We know we are. So now it's how fast can we adjust and defend it?
Into 3 phases: offense, defense, and special teams. Can you talk about how your special team unit stepped up in that Pittsburgh game last week?
Yeah, anytime you get a takeaway, you can have a really average overall day. Complete wash. They got a return to the 28. We got one to the 20. You get a takeaway, bang. Game is completely changed. Conversely, got to make our field goals, right? So anytime you go out there, you expect points. And, that's a wind out of the sails that right there type of moment. So there are some great things. You get a takeaway, fired up. Got to go, man. If you can lead the league in takeaways, you're going to have a damn good special teams unit. So that's the goal. And was excited to see Brandon re-enter on a long punt. Tommy let that thing fly. played with speed, got up through the white. We call it running the white of the sideline, and then re-entering with force, and that ball's on the ground. Face first always, no tuxedo.
Tuxedo, what?
As excited and as hyped up as Tommy was.
Yeah, that's good competitive football, 11 football players, no matter what position you play, football players. So excited for guys to play their style, guys to play with their emotion and who they are, and Tommy's no different.
Two feisty punters out there.
Yeah. Yeah. Oh, heck yeah, man. That'd be fired up to play against his old team. And first off, there's very few players that I respect more across the entire NFL than Cam. Good friend, great player, the best worker, and excited for his opportunity to go and continue his playing career. It was fun to go out there and see him and, compete against anybody who we line up against that Sunday.
Would I be misrepresenting it if I compared Kaimi's situation to maybe field goals being a driver for a golfer, maybe some of this kickoff stuff being, shorter game, stuff like that, a little bit more placement? Am I on the track there when I kind of describe it that way?
Yeah. Cautionary tale, don't ever tell a kicker it's a chip shot field goal. There's no field goal.
Just stole my take, you weasel.
I used an analogy in my meeting this morning and yesterday, and I showed a clip of Danny Ocean in Ocean's 11. And he had quoted to Matt Damon earlier in the movie, if you lose focus in this game for 1 second, somebody gets hurt. And later in the movie, they're about to blow the door to the big Bellagio vault heist, and he forgot the batteries to the detonator. And Matt Damon chirps back. He says, if you lose focus for 1 second. And I used that for the team, and I said to Kamari, in a good way, we can never take any moment of a game, a field goal, casual or of any kind, and we need to be laser focused at all times. And that was a moment. So the analogy there, and even if it was a short field goal, by his standards, wants to make that kick every time. So field goals need to be pure. They need to be elevated and scooped to get it over the line of scrimmage, and straight drivers down the fairway, yes. And then there's going to be some more placement. So what kind of irons can you play with to stay on the analogy? That's going to be something legitimate. But knowing your club distance is got to be elite. If we can put the ball to the 1 yard line with location, that's going to be the secret right there. So that's not something we're seeing across the league, and then sometimes do I want it on the 18 or do I want to put it out of the back of the end zone and bring the driver back out? So you're not wrong. I think it's a fair analogy. Just don't tell kickers it's a chip shot on the field.
Frank Ross. Stole my take, man. Y'all been listening to me use that golf analogy always. Stooks, you thief, man. You damn thief. Just kidding. We talk a lot, so it's kind of something that is there. Saturday, Big Square, preseason football, baby. Texans, Giants. First chance for fans in a game atmosphere that are so excited to embrace this Texans team, soak it all in, get a little taste of perhaps some new things that they're going to be doing. It's kind of experimental for the PR guys too. I know I've talked to Greg Grissom before and Doug and all them, and they're trying to get it together too, and they're always trying to do crazy things as well, like to add to the game day experience. So we'll get a vibe of that. The post game show, I'm going to be at home in the studio, so we don't have to worry about any of that. But the road work, man, sometimes it's not going to be good on the road. Sometimes it's hard. Sometimes it's hard to compete on the road. That's why it's easier to play at home than on the road. But when you're on the road, you don't stop streaming. This is the stream, the locker room. Appreciate y'all for coming through. Be sure to subscribe, like, right along. It is a really, really fun time to follow this squad. It's a fun time to talk to y'all and greatly appreciate it. And always remember, when it comes to this Texan stuff, we're all in it together. Have a good one.